Have you ever noticed the louder an argument becomes, the weaker the relationship feels? We think winning an argument means speaking more, proving more, defending more. But what if I told you the real victory often comes from saying less? Stay with me till the end. The last lessons will truly change your perspective. Because silence, when understood correctly, is not weakness, it is power, my dear friends. Many of us are not fighting with people, we are fighting for validation. We are fighting to be heard, to be understood, to be right. And somewhere in that noise, we lose something very precious, our peace. You may be watching this after a heated conversation with your partner, your parent, your colleague, or even a friend. Your heart is still racing. Your mind is replaying what you should have said. And you are wondering, why didn't they understand me? I understand that feeling. But today, I want to take you on a journey through 7 powerful lessons, not about defeating others, but about mastering yourself. Because when you master yourself, you win every argument, even the ones you never speak in. Let us begin. When we speak about silence, most people imagine someone withdrawing, someone defeated, someone who had no answer. But, my dear friends, silence is not the absence of words, it is the presence of awareness. And the first powerful shift we must understand is this: silence creates space for wisdom to enter. Let me explain. Have you ever noticed how quickly arguments escalate? One sentence is spoken, another sentence is fired back, then the tone changes, then the volume increases. And within minutes, you are no longer discussing the issue. You are defending your identity. At that moment, it was not two people talking. It is two egos fighting for survival. I once met a young corporate executive who told me, whenever someone questions my decision in meetings, I immediately respond, I cannot tolerate being challenged. I asked him gently, and after you respond, what happens? He smiled and said, the meeting becomes tense. People stop contributing. I asked him again, so are you solving a problem or are you creating fear? You see, when emotions rise, intelligence drops. When anger takes the front seat, clarity quietly leaves the room. And most arguments are not lost because of a lack of logic. They are lost because of a lack of emotional discipline. Silence gives your intelligence time to catch up with your emotions. Imagine driving a car at high speed and suddenly seeing a sharp turn ahead. What do? You slow down. You don't press the accelerator harder. You pause. You adjust. You regain control. Silence in an argument is that brake pedal. When someone says something hurtful, your mind immediately prepares a counterattack. It is very quick, very sharp, very ready. But wisdom needs a moment. Wisdom does not shout, it waits. And if you give it those few seconds, something magical happens. Instead of reacting, you begin observing. Instead of defending, you begin understanding. Instead of escalating, you begin diffusing. Let me ask you something honestly. How many arguments have you regretted? Not because you were wrong, but because you said too much. Because in the heat of the moment, you allowed your tongue to move faster than your heart. Words spoken in anger are like arrows released from a bow. Once they leave, you cannot call them back. You may apologize later, but the memory of that wound remains. Silence protects you from becoming a prisoner of your own impulse. Many people think, if I stay silent, I will lose. But lose what? The argument or the opportunity to respond with maturity? There is a difference between losing control and choosing composure. Silence is not about having nothing to say. It is about deciding that the moment is not ready to hear it. Sometimes the most powerful response is a calm face, a steady breath, and eyes that refuse to engage in chaos. That silence unsettles the other person. Not because you are weak, but because you are not playing the same game. When you pause, you create psychological space. That space allows you to ask yourself powerful questions. What is truly being said here? Is this worth damaging the relationship? Will my next sentence bring resolution or more friction? These questions do not arise in noise, they arise in silence. And here is something very important: silence also reveals your inner state to yourself. If staying silent feels impossible, that means something inside you is still unstable. And that is not a judgment, it is an opportunity. Every argument becomes a mirror. It shows you how much control you truly have over your reactions. It shows you whether you are governed by ego or guided by awareness. Think of a lake. When the water is disturbed, you cannot see your reflection clearly. But when the water is still, it becomes a mirror. Your mind is that lake. If you allow every comment, every criticism, every disagreement to disturb it, you will live in constant turbulence. But if you cultivate inner stillness, clarity becomes natural. And clarity is far more powerful than quick replies. The world today celebrates fast responses, quick comebacks, instant reactions. But growth requires something different. Growth requires restraint. Growth requires the courage to pause when everyone else is rushing. Silence gives you that courage. It gives you the ability to choose your response instead of being dragged by your reaction. And when you consistently practice this, when you allow wisdom to speak instead of impulse, people begin to experience you differently. They feel safer around you. They feel heard around you. They trust you more. Because deep down, every human being longs for stability. And the person who can remain calm in conflict becomes that stability. So the next time you feel your heart racing during an argument, try this. Breathe deeply. Say nothing for a few seconds. Let the emotional wave pass through you without responding. You will notice something surprising. Most waves lose their strength when they are not resisted. Silence is not empty. It is full of intelligence waiting to guide you. And when you learn to create space for that intelligence, you don't just win arguments, you win mastery over yourself. And that is where real victory begins. When you begin practicing silence, something very interesting happens, not just within you, but around you. And this brings us to the next powerful realization: silence exposes truth. You see, in most arguments, both people are so focused on proving their point that no one is actually listening. It becomes a competition of volume, not a conversation of value. Each person waits for the other to stop speaking, not to understand, but to respond. But when you choose silence consciously, you disrupt that pattern. I remember once observing a heated discussion between two colleagues. One was very vocal, very expressive, almost dominating the conversation. The other listened quietly, no interruption, no sarcasm, no eye rolling, just attentive silence. At first, it seemed like the quieter one was losing, but something unexpected happened. The louder colleague kept talking and talking and talking. And in the process, he began contradicting himself. He revealed insecurity beneath his aggression. His arguments lost structure, and everyone in the room could see it, except him. Silence, my dear friends, is like a mirror. It allows people to hear themselves clearly. When you interrupt someone, they remain defensive. But when you let them speak fully, without resistance, they often become aware of their own exaggerations. They may even soften their tone. Sometimes the greatest correction comes not from confrontation, but from reflection. Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where you were upset and someone simply listened to you patiently? Didn't that calm you down more than someone arguing back? Human beings crave to be heard more than they crave to be right. And when you remain silent, not with resentment, but with genuine attention, you are offering something rare. You are offering space. Space for emotion to settle, space for truth to surface, space for clarity to arise. Silence has a way of filtering noise. When someone keeps speaking without interruption, superficial anger often dissolves, and the real issue begins to emerge. A person might start by saying, "You never respect me." But if you let them continue, what they may actually reveal is, "I felt ignored when you didn't call me." The problem was not disrespect, it was hurt. But if you had reacted to the first accusation, the real feeling would have remained hidden beneath layers of defense. Silence gives the truth a chance to breathe. Now, here is something deeper. When you remain calm and silent, you also observe things you would otherwise miss: tone, body language, hesitation, fear. You begin to see that most anger is a shield protecting vulnerability. And when you see that, your approach changes. Instead of attacking back, you become compassionate. Instead of trying to defeat, you try to understand. This does not mean you agree with everything being said. It simply means you are patient enough to see the full picture. Before responding. And patience, my friends, is a sign of strength. There is a misconception that the person who speaks the most controls the conversation. But true control belongs to the one who is not controlled by emotion. Silence unsettles those who expect resistance. When someone is prepared for a fight and you don't fight back, they are forced to confront themselves. It is like throwing a ball at a wall and expecting it to bounce back, but instead it falls gently to the ground. The energy dissipates. Arguments survive on reaction. Without reaction, they lose momentum. But be careful. Silence must not be sarcastic. It must not be filled with passive aggression. That is not powerful silence. That is suppressed frustration. Powerful silence is attentive, grounded, neutral. It says, "I am here, I am listening, I am not threatened." And that calm presence can transform the entire dynamic. Many times, after fully expressing themselves, people will say, "I'm sorry, I may have overreacted." Not because you forced them to admit it, but because your silence gave them the dignity to realize it on their own. There is a beautiful dignity in letting someone discover their truth instead of pushing it onto them. And let me tell you something very important. Silence also reveals truth within you. While the other person is speaking, you have time to examine your own role. You may realize, perhaps I could have handled that differently. Or maybe they are right about this part. Silence allows self reflection in real time. And that self reflection is maturity. If you immediately react, you only see the situation from your angle. But when you pause and observe, you begin to see it from multiple perspectives. And perspective reduces conflict. In a world where everyone wants to speak, the one who listens deeply stands out. Silence does not mean you will never speak. It means when you do speak, your words carry weight because they are not impulsive, they are thoughtful. And thoughtful words land differently. They don't escalate, they clarify. So the next time you find yourself in an argument, try this experiment. Let the other person finish completely. Do not prepare your reply while they are talking. Just listen. You will be surprised how much truth surfaces about them and about you. And when truth surfaces naturally, resolution becomes easier. Silence is not about surrendering your voice, it is about refining it. When you speak after true listening, your words are no longer weapons, they become bridges. And bridges, my dear friends, connect hearts far more effectively than arguments ever could. Now let us go deeper. Because this next understanding changes everything. Silence is not suppression, it is self control. Many people misunderstand this. They think staying silent means swallowing your feelings, pretending nothing happened, bottling everything up until one day it explodes. That is not powerful silence. That is delayed chaos. Real silence is conscious. It is chosen. It is disciplined. Let me explain with something simple. Imagine a pressure cooker. If you keep locking the steam inside without any release, what happens? One day, boom, it bursts. That is suppression. You did not manage the pressure. You only ignored it. But now imagine a dam holding back water. It is strong. It regulates the flow. It releases water when needed, in the right amount, at the right time. That is self control. Silence, when rooted in awareness, is like that dam. You are not denying your emotions, you are regulating them. There was once a young woman who told me, whenever someone criticizes me, I go quiet. But inside, I am boiling. I asked her, when you go quiet, what are you thinking? She said, I'm thinking about how wrong they are. I replay T E conversation again and again. I smiled and said, then you are not silent. You are just loudly arguing inside your head. True silence begins inside. If your mouth is quiet but your mind is screaming, that is not peace. That is restraint without understanding. And restraint without understanding eventually breaks. Self control is different. Self control means you pause, not because you are afraid to speak, but because you are wise enough to wait. There is a very big difference between fear and awareness. Fear says, if I speak, they will hurt me. Awareness says, if I speak now, I might hurt them. Fear shrinks you. Awareness strengthens you. When someone says something that triggers you, your body reacts immediately. Heart rate increases, muscles tighten, thoughts race. In that moment, you feel the urge to defend yourself, to protect your identity. But ask yourself gently, what exactly are you protecting? Most arguments are not about facts. They are about ego, about image, about wanting to be seen as right, competent, intelligent. And ego is very sensitive. Self control means you recognize this sensitivity without letting it dictate your behavior. It means you notice your anger rising, but you do not let it speak for you. You observe your frustration, but you do not allow it to design your response. That observation, that inner pause, is strength. Let me share something very practical. The next time you feel triggered, try this simple technique. Instead of responding immediately, take one conscious breath. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly, and ask yourself one question. What outcome do I want from this conversation? Do I want to release my frustration or do I want to resolve the issue? These are very different goals. When you react, you release. When you respond, you resolve. And silence is the bridge between reaction and response. Many people think strong I. Individuals are those who can argue brilliantly, who can counter every point with logic and intensity. But real strength is emotional discipline. Anyone can shout, anyone can interrupt, anyone can throw harsh words, but not everyone can remain composed when provoked. That composure is built over time. It requires practice, it requires humility, and it requires something very important: responsibility. Self control means you take responsibility for your emotional state instead of blaming others for it. You stop saying, they made me angry. You begin saying, I allowed myself to react in anger. That shift is powerful because once you own your reaction, you can change it. Suppression says, I have no choice but to stay quiet. Self control says, I choose to stay quiet for now. Suppression feels heavy. Self control feels empowering. And here is something many people overlook. When you practice self control, you begin to trust yourself more. You begin to feel stable. You realize that no matter what someone says, you do not have to lose yourself. That realization builds confidence. There is a calm authority in someone who cannot be easily shaken. When people notice that you do not react impulsively, they become more careful with their words. Not because they fear you, but because they respect you. And respect is earned through consistency. When you repeatedly choose awareness over impulse, you send a silent message: I am in charge of myself. And the person who is in charge of themselves cannot be easily controlled by others. But let me also say this: self control does not mean silence forever. There will be moments when you must speak, when you must set boundaries, when you must express your truth clearly. But when that expression comes from a centered mind instead of a triggered one, it carries power without aggression. Your tone changes, your posture change. Yes, your words become precise instead of explosive, and people listen differently. Silence gives you the time to choose the right moment. It ensures that when you speak, you are not speaking from pain, you are speaking from clarity. And clarity has a very different energy. It does not attack, it illuminates. So, my dear friends, do not confuse silence with weakness. Do not confuse restraint with fear. Silence, when rooted in awareness, is mastery. It is the ability to feel everything and still choose wisely. And when you cultivate that kind of self control, you do not just win arguments, you win something far greater. You win yourself. Now, let us move into something even more delicate and deeply important. Silence protects relationships more than words ever can. Let me ask you something honestly. How many times have you said something in anger and wished you could take it back? Not because you were wrong about the issue, but because of how you said it. One harsh sentence can undo years of trust. One sarcastic remark can create distance that takes months to repair. Words, once spoken, do not disappear. They echo, they linger, they replay in the hearts of those who heard them. I once met a father who told me, with tears in his eyes, in one moment of frustration, I told my son he would never succeed. He is successful today, but he still remembers that sentence. Isn't it strange? We may forget what we said in anger, but the other person remembers it for years. That is the power of words, and that is why silence at the right time becomes protection. Most arguments are not about strangers, they are about people we care about: partners, parents, siblings, close friends, colleagues we work with every day. And when ego enters those spaces, relationships suffer. Because arguments are rarely about solving problems, they are about winning. But tell me, what is the point of winning an argument if you lose the warmth of the relationship? What is the value of being right if the other person feels small? Sometimes we think, I must correct them immediately. I must prove my point. But wisdom asks a deeper question: is this the right moment? Timing is everything. If someone is emotionally charged, they are not ready to receive logic. If someone feels hurt, they are not prepared for lectures. In those moments, silence acts like water poured over fire. It cools the temperature. It prevents escalation. It says, this relationship matters more than this reaction. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people arguing late at night. Both are tired, both are frustrated. Voices rise, emotions intensify. Now imagine one of them says gently, let's talk about this tomorrow. Right now, we are not in the best state. That pause can save the relationship from unnecessary damage. Silence is not avoidance when it is temporary and intentional. It becomes wisdom when it protects what is valuable. We must learn to differentiate between solving a problem and inflaming it. There is a beautiful saying: speak when you are calm, not when you are angry. Anger makes you exaggerate. It makes you say always and never. It brings up old issues that were never part of the current conversation. It turns a small disagreement into a character assassination. But silence interrupts that spiral. It gives both people time to reset. Have you noticed something interesting? When two people argue and one refuses to escalate, the conflict loses fuel. Arguments survive on reaction. Without reaction, they slowly weaken. But this silence must come from love, not pride. If you stay silent to punish the other person, that creates distance. If you stay silent to protect the bond, that creates space. There's a huge difference. Relationships are not competitions. They are collaborations. In a collaboration, sometimes you step back so the other person can step forward. Sometimes you absorb tension so the connection can survive. This does not mean tolerating disrespect. It does not mean accepting abuse. It means choosing maturity over impulse. And maturity asks, what matters more, my ego or this bond? When you consistently choose silence in heated moments, people begin to feel safer around you. They know you will not explode. They know you will not weaponize words. They know you will not turn disagreement into humiliation. Safety is the foundation of every healthy relationship, and silence builds that safety. Think about the people you feel most comfortable with. Are they the ones who react instantly to everything you say? Or are they the ones who listen patiently, who pause before responding, who think before speaking? We are drawn to emotional stability because stability feels secure. Now, here is something deeper. Sometimes the silence you offer gives the other person room to reflect. After emotions cool down, they may approach you differently. They may apologize, they may clarify, they may even thank you for not escalating. But if you had reacted harshly, both of you would be stuck defending your positions instead of healing the connection. In the long run, relationships thrive not because conflicts never happen, but because conflicts are handled with care. Silence, when used wisely, is care in action. It says, I value us more than I value being right. And that shift changes everything. Because love grows in environments where dignity is preserved. Every time you choose silence over harsh reaction, you are preserving dignity, yours and theirs. You are protecting future conversations. You are protecting shared memories. You are protecting trust. And trust, once broken repeatedly, becomes fragile. So the next time you are tempted to say something sharp, pause and ask yourself, will these words bring us closer or push us apart? If they will push you apart, silence is not weakness, it is protection. Protection of something far more precious than a temporary victory. And when you learn to value relationships over reactions, you discover something beautiful. Winning an argument feels temporary. Preserving love feels lasting. And lasting always matters more. Now we step into something very powerful, something that changes not just arguments, but your entire presence in this world. Silence builds inner authority. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately sensed who carries stability? Not the loudest person, not the one trying to impress everyone, but the one who speaks less, yet when they speak, everyone listens. That presence is not accidental. It is built through discipline, through restraint, through silence. In most conflicts, people try to dominate with words. They think authority comes from volume, from speed, from having the last word. But real authority does not shout, it does not rush, it does not chase validation. Real authority is calm. Let me share something simple. In a meeting, when a debate begins, notice what happens. Some people jump in quickly, interrupting, defending, explaining, and then there is one person who leans back, listening carefully. observing, not reacting. At first, you may think they are disengaged, but when they finally speak, their words are measured, clear, concise, powerful. And suddenly everyone pays attention. Why? Because silence creates weight. When you speak less, your words carry more value. When you react less, your responses carry more depth. Inner authority is not about controlling others, it is about controlling yourself. And when people see that you are not easily triggered, they begin to respect you differently. There is something very unsettling about someone who cannot be provoked. It forces others to confront their own instability. Think about this. If someone throws an insult at you and you immediately retaliate, the situation becomes a fight. But if you remain composed, look at them calmly, and say nothing for a moment, the dynamic shifts. Your silence communicates, I am not threatened. And confidence is most visible when it does not need to defend itself constantly. Many arguments escalate because both sides are desperate to assert dominance. But the person with inner authority does not feel the need to prove themselves in every conversation. They know who they are. They do not require applause for validation. They do not require agreement for security. And that stability is magnetic. Silence strengthens this stability because it forces you to rely on your internal foundation rather than external reactions. If someone criticizes you and you immediately defend yourself, it means their opinion has shaken you. But if you listen calmly, evaluate what is useful, and ignore what is not, you demonstrate inner strength. Authority grows when you are guided by values instead of emotions. Let me give you another example. Imagine two leaders facing criticism. One reacts angrily, dismisses the feedback, and blames others. The other listens quietly, reflects, and then responds thoughtfully. Which one inspires trust? Which one feels grounded? Silence allows you to choose the second path. It creates a buffer between stimulus and response. And in that buffer, your character is revealed. People may not always agree with you, but they will respect you if you remain composed. Composure is contagious. When one person stays calm, it lowers the emotional temperature of the entire room. You become an anchor in chaos. And anchors do not drift with every wave. Here is something very important. Inner authority is built in small moments. Every time you resist the urge to interrupt, every time you choose to listen fully, every time you respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively, you strengthen your emotional muscles. Just like physical strength requires repeated training, emotional strength requires repeated restraint. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. Your ego may scream, say something, defend yourself. But when you override that impulse, you grow. And growth feels quiet. Over time, you will notice something remarkable. You will no longer feel the need to win every argument. You will no longer feel anxious when someone disagrees with you. You will no longer feel threatened by strong personalities because your stability comes from within. When you develop this kind of authority, your words become intentional. You speak not to dominate, but to clarify, not to attack, but to contribute. And people sense the difference. Silence also protects your energy. Arguments drain you when you engage in every provocation. But when you choose carefully which battles deserve your voice, you conserve emotional strength. You stop reacting to small provocations. You stop chasing minor validations. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. That selective engagement is wisdom. Inner authority means you decide when to speak and when to step back. You are no longer controlled by the urgency of the moment. And here is the beautiful part. When you consistently embody this calm strength, conflicts around you decrease. Not because people stop disagreeing with you, but because they sense your maturity. They sense that chaos will not shake you. They sense that shouting will not move you. They sense that manipulation will not control you. And so they adjust. You do not demand respect, you naturally command it. That is the quiet power of silence. It shapes your character in invisible ways. It strengthens your presence without announcement. It builds confidence without arrogance. So the next time you are tempted to assert yourself loudly, ask yourself gently, do I want to be heard or do I want to be respected? Because being heard lasts for a moment, being respected lasts for a lifetime, and respect grows in the soil of silence. When you cultivate that silence within, you do not just influence arguments, you influence hearts. And you influence your own evolution into someone stable, grounded, and deeply powerful. That is inner authority. And once you taste it, you will never trade it for the temporary satisfaction of winning a noisy debate. Now we are entering the heart of this transformation. And I truly mean it. If you understand this deeply, your conflicts will never look the same again. Silence teaches you to listen beyond words. Most arguments are not about what they appear to be about. When someone says, "You never support me," it is rarely about that one incident. When someone says, "You don't care," it is rarely about that one moment. Words are often just the surface. Underneath the surface, there are emotions: hurt, fear, insecurity, exhaustion. But if you react only to the words, you miss the emotion. And when emotion is ignored, conflict continues. Let me share something simple. A husband comes home late from work. His wife says, "You're always late. You don't care about this family." He reacts immediately. "I'm working hard for this family. You're so ungrateful." Now the argument is about lateness and gratitude. But what was really happening? Maybe she felt lonely. Maybe she felt unimportant. Maybe she was overwhelmed and needed support. But because he reacted to the accusation instead of listening to the emotion, the real issue remained hidden. Silence gives you the ability to hear what is not being said. When someone raises their voice, instead of preparing your defense, try asking yourself quietly, what are they feeling right now? Anger is often a mask. Criticism is often a cry. Aggression is often fear. But you cannot see this if you are busy protecting your ego. Silence slows you down enough to observe. Observe the tremble in their voice. Observe the hesitation between sentences. Observe the repetition of certain words. Sometimes people repeat themselves not because they want to argue, but because they feel unheard. When you interrupt, you confirm their fear. When you listen, you calm it. Listening is different from waiting for your turn to speak. True listening means you are not constructing your reply while they are talking. You are absorbing. You are understanding. You are giving your full presence. And presence is powerful. There was once a young man who told me, "Swamiji, my father and I argue constantly. He never understands me." I asked him, "When your father speaks, what do you do?" He said, "I explain why he's wrong." I smiled and said, "Then neither of you are listening. You are both correcting." Correction without connection creates resistance. Connection comes from listening. When you listen deeply, something shifts inside you. Compassion begins to replace competition. You begin to see the person behind the argument. And when you see the person, your tone changes naturally. Instead of saying, "That's not true," you might say, "I can see you're upset. Help me understand what's bothering you." That sentence alone can transform the direction of a conversation. Because now the focus moves from proving to understanding, and understanding dissolves tension. Let me tell you something very important. Most people don't need solutions immediately. They need validation first. Validation does not mean agreement. It may NS acknowledging their emotion. You can say, I may see it differently, but I understand why you feel hurt. That one line can reduce 50% of the conflict. But you cannot say that sincerely unless you have listened. Silence is what allows listening to happen. It creates the mental space to step outside your perspective and step into theirs. And when you do that, something beautiful happens. Empathy grows. Empathy does not mean weakness, it means strength with sensitivity. It means you care enough to understand before responding. Now, let me say something deeper. When you practice listening beyond words, you also begin to hear yourself more clearly. You start noticing your own patterns, your own triggers, your own fears. You realize that sometimes you react strongly, not because of the current situation, but because of past wounds. Maybe someone's tone reminds you of being criticized as a child. Maybe disagreement feels like rejection to you. Maybe raised voices make you anxious. Silence allows you to observe these inner reactions. And awareness reduces reactivity. The more aware you become of your internal responses, the less power they have over you. So silence becomes a teacher. It teaches you about others. It teaches you about yourself. And when both of those insights come together, conflict transforms into growth. Imagine if every argument became an opportunity to understand each other more deeply instead of drifting apart. That is possible, but only when someone is willing to listen first. Be that someone, not because you are weak, not because you are surrendering, but because you are strong enough to care more about connection than correction. When you master this level of listening, you will notice something extraordinary. Arguments become shorter, misunderstandings reduce, trust increases. People begin to open up instead of shutting down because they feel heard. And when people feel heard, they soften. Silence is not empty space between words. It is sacred space where understanding is born. So the next time you find yourself in conflict, resist the urge to interrupt. Resist the urge to defend instantly. Listen not just to what is being said, but to what is being felt. Because when you respond to the feeling instead of fighting the words, you do not just win the argument, you win the heart. And winning the heart always matters more. Now we arrive at the final and most important lesson. If you truly understand this, you will never look at arguments the same way again. The greatest argument you will ever win is the argument within yourself. Every conflict outside begins inside. Before words are spoken, before voices rise, before emotions explode, there is a silent battle happening within you. Your ego says, prove them wrong. Your pride says, don't let them talk to you like that. Your insecurity says, if you stay quiet, they'll think you're weak. Your anger says, show them who you are. And then there is another voice, quieter, gentler, wiser. It says, choose peace. Most of us don't lose arguments to other people, we lose them to our impulses. Think about the last time you reacted instantly. The words came out quickly, the tone was sharp. For a few seconds, you felt powerful. But later, when you were alone, how did you feel? Regretful, restless, drained? Because deep down, you knew you could have handled it better. That inner discomfort is your conscience reminding you that strength is not loud. True strength is restraint. There is a story I once heard about a monk who was insulted publicly. The man insulting him expected a reaction. He provoked, mocked, and tried to humiliate him. The monk stood quietly. After a while, the man asked angrily, why aren't you responding? The monk smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The man said, "It remains with the one who offered it." The monk replied, "Then I do not accept your insult. That is mastery. Mastery is not controlling others. It is controlling what you allow into your mind and what you allow out of your mouth." When someone criticizes you, you have two choices. You can absorb it emotionally and react, or you can evaluate it calmly and respond only if necessary. The power lies in that choice. But choice exists only when there is awareness. If you are unconscious, reactive, driven by impulse, you are not choosing. You are being controlled. And the one who controls your emotions controls your peace. So, ask yourself, do you want others to control your peace? Every time you react impulsively, you hand over your power. Every time you pause and respond thoughtfully, you reclaim it. Winning the inner argument means disciplining your ego. It means being secure enough not to chase the last word. It means being confident enough not to defend every criticism. It means being peaceful enough not to escalate every disagreement. And this is not easy. Your ego will resist, your pride will protest, your mind will justify reaction. But growth always feels uncomfortable in the beginning. Imagine building a muscle. At first, lifting weight feels painful, but over time, you become stronger. Emotional discipline works the same way. At first, staying silent when you want to react feels difficult, but with practice, it becomes natural. And then something beautiful happens. You stop feeling threatened by disagreement. You stop feeling attacked by opinions. You stop feeling the urge to dominate conversations. Because you realize something profound. Your worth is not determined by winning arguments. Your worth is inherent. When you understand this deeply, arguments lose their intensity. You no longer fight to protect your identity. You are secure in who you are. And secure. Rati creates peace. Let me share one final reflection. Life is short, relationships are fragile, energy is limited. Is it wise to spend your precious energy proving points? Or is it wiser to invest that energy in understanding, growth, and connection? The choice is yours. Every day, you will face small disagreements at home, at work, in friendships. Each one is an opportunity to react or to rise, an opportunity to argue or to evolve, an opportunity to protect your ego or to protect your peace. The world does not need more loud voices, it needs more grounded hearts. So the next time someone challenges you, pauses before you speak, feel your breath, observe your thoughts, let the initial wave pass. Then ask yourself, will my next sentence bring me closer to peace or further from it? Remember this always. Silence is not about losing your voice, it is about finding your center. And when you are centered, no argument can shake you. Happiness is not about having the last word, it is about having the last calm breath. When you put awareness first, ego naturally takes the last place. True success is not winning debates, true success is mastering yourself. And when you master yourself, you win not just arguments, you win life. And now, let me leave you with something that ties all of this together. Because silence is not just a technique for arguments, it is a spiritual practice, it is a way of living. Most of us are constantly reacting to messages, to comments, to opinions, to situations. Our phones vibrate, our minds react. Someone disagrees, our ego reacts. Someone criticizes, our emotions react. We live in reaction mode, and reaction mode is exhausting. Silence shifts you from reaction to reflection. Reflection creates awareness. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates freedom. and free. Dom is peace. Imagine living in such a way that no comment can disturb your stability. Imagine being so grounded that disagreements don't threaten you. Imagine carrying a calm presence that makes others feel safe instead of defensive. That is not weakness, that is spiritual maturity. You see, when you constantly argue, you are trying to control others' perceptions of you. But when you cultivate silence, you are focused on controlling your own state. And that is where real power lies. Let me ask you something very personal. What do you truly want? To be right or to be peaceful? To dominate conversations or to deepen connections? To win arguments or to win trust? The answers to these questions will shape your life because arguments may give you temporary satisfaction, but peace gives you long term joy. And here is something even deeper: silence connects you to something higher than ego. When you pause instead of react, you create space for wisdom, for compassion, for grace. In that space, you remember who you truly are, not just a personality defending itself, but a soul learning and evolving. And when you begin responding from that place, your entire energy changes. Your words soften, your tone stabilizes, your eyes become kind, your presence becomes healing. People may not even understand what changed in you, but they will feel it. They will feel that arguing with you is pointless. They will feel that shouting does not move you. They will feel that negativity does not stick to you. And slowly the conflicts around you will reduce. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. My dear friends, silence is not about avoiding difficult conversations. There will be times when you must speak firmly, when you must set boundaries, when you must express truth clearly. But even then, let your words come from stillness, not from storm. When words rise, firm silence, they carry clarity instead of chaos. They heal instead of hurt. They guide instead of attack. And that is how you truly win every argument. Not by overpowering others, but by overpowering your lower impulses. So the next time you are in the middle of a disagreement, remember this message: pause, breathe, observe. Ask yourself, is my ego speaking or is my wisdom speaking? If it is ego, wait. If it is wisdom, speak gently. Because life's quality is not determined by how many arguments you win, it is determined by how much peace you preserve. Happiness is not about having everything go your way, it is about remaining steady when things don't. When you put awareness first, fear naturally takes the last place. When you put humility first, ego naturally takes the last place. And when you put peace first, arguments lose their power over you. True success is living consciously, joyfully, and purposefully. So walk this path of silence, practice it daily, apply it immediately. Not tomorrow, not when things calm down. Now, because the greatest victory is not over another person, it is over the chaos within you. And when you win that battle, you don't just win arguments, you win your freedom, you win your dignity, you win your life. And before we close, I want you to sit with me for just a moment. Close your eyes if you can. Think about the last argument you had, the tension, the racing thoughts, the need to defend, the desire to prove. Now ask yourself honestly, did winning that argument make you happier or did it leave you feeling heavy? You see, arguments end in minutes, but the emotional residue can stay for days. Silence is not just about controlling your tongue, it is about cleansing your heart. When you choose not to react, you are choosing emotional maturity. When you choose to pause, you are choosing long term peace over short term satisfaction. And that is rare. In a world that celebrates instant replies and sharp comebacks, the person who can stay composed is extraordinary. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to respond to every criticism. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. You don't need to win every debate. Sometimes the most powerful statement is a calm smile. Sometimes the strongest reply is no reply. And sometimes the greatest victory is walking away with your peace intact. My dear friends, life will give you many opportunities to react. Every day, in small ways, a rude comment, a disagreement, a difference of opinion. Each one is a test, not of your intelligence, not of your logic, but of your awareness. When awareness grows, arguments shrink. When ego shrinks, relationships grow. When peace grows, happiness becomes natural. So make this your practice. Before responding, breathe. Before reacting, reflect. Before speaking, ask, will this bring peace? If the answer is no, silence is your ally. Because silence is not empty, it is full of wisdom, full of strength, full of dignity. Remember this always. Happiness is not about having the last word. It is about having the last calm breath. True success is not proving others wrong. It is living consciously, peacefully, and purposefully. And when you master the power of silence, you don't just win arguments, you win respect. You win clarity. You win yourself. And when you win yourself, and now let me leave you with one final reflection, not for your mind, but for your heart. One day, many years from now, you will not remember every argument you won. You will not remember the clever comebacks. You will not remember the debates you dominated. You will not remember who had the last word. But you will remember the relationships you preserved. You will remember the moments you chose maturity over ego. You will remember the times you protected peace instead of proving a point. And those memories will bring you far more joy than any temporary victory ever could. Silence is not about escaping conflict, it is about transforming it. It is about stepping out of the battlefield of ego and stepping into the sanctuary of awareness. When you react, you operate from instinct. When you respond, you operate from intelligence. But when you pause in silence, you operate from wisdom. And wisdom changes everything. It changes your tone, it changes your posture, it changes your energy. People begin to feel something different around you. They feel calm, they feel heard, they feel less threatened. And without even trying, you become someone others trust. Because trust is built on emotional safety. When people know you won't explode, when they know you won't humiliate, when they know you won't weaponize words, they relax. And relaxed hearts connect. My dear friends, the world today is noisy. Opinions are loud, egos are loud, judgments are loud. But peace is quiet. And those who choose quiet strength stand out in the most beautiful way. You don't need to silence others to feel powerful. You only need to silence the chaos within. The moment you realize that no one can disturb your inner peace without your permission, you become unstoppable. Not aggressive, not dominating, but unshakable. And that is true power. So from today, practice this. When someone provokes you, smile internally. When someone misunderstands you, breathe deeply. When someone argues with you, listen patiently. Not because you are weak, but because you are wise. Remember, the goal of life is not to collect victories over others. It is to cultivate harmony within yourself. Happiness is not about having everything go your way. It is about staying centered when things don't. When you put awareness first, ego naturally takes the last place. When you put peace first, arguments lose their importance. And when you put purpose first, distractions fade away. True success is living consciously, joyfully, and purposefully. So walk with silence, lead with compassion, respond with wisdom, and let your presence speak louder than your words ever could. Because in the end, the person who masters silence does not just win arguments, they win their freedom. They win their dignity. They win their life. And now, let me speak to you not as a teacher, but as a fellow traveler on this journey of life. We all struggle. We all have moments when emotions rise, when pride feels hurt, when we desperately want to prove our point. I am not asking you to become emotionless. I am not asking you to suppress your truth. I am inviting you to become conscious because consciousness changes the way you experience conflict. Imagine two versions of you. One version reacts instantly. Words spill out. Two, nay rises. Later, regret settles in. Relationships strain. Peace disappears. The other version pauses. Breath slows. Thoughts settle. Words are chosen carefully. Even if disagreement remains, dignity is preserved. Both versions exist within you. The question is, which one will you feed? Every time you choose silence over impulse, you strengthen the wiser version of yourself. And slowly, very slowly, something shifts. Arguments no longer feel like battles, they feel like conversations, they feel like opportunities to understand, they feel like moments to practice growth. And that is spiritual evolution. Because spirituality is not just meditation on a cushion, it is meditation in motion, in conversations, in disagreements, in daily interactions. When someone disagrees with you and you remain calm, that is meditation. When someone criticizes you and you respond with clarity instead of anger, that is meditation. When someone provokes you and you refuse to be provoked, that is meditation. You are training your mind, you are disciplining your ego, you are strengthening your inner stability. And that inner stability becomes your greatest asset. Life will not stop testing you. There will always be different opinions, different personalities, different expectations. But if your peace depends on everyone agreeing with you, you will never be peaceful. Peace begins when you detach your happiness from being right. It begins when you value harmony over dominance. It begins when you value understanding over victory. And here is something very beautiful. When you consistently choose silence wisely, people begin to change around you. Your calm influences their tone. Your patience influences their pace. Your composure influences their behavior. You become a mirror of stability. And stability is rare. In a world where people are constantly reacting, the person who responds thoughtfully becomes a source of strength for others. So, my dear friends, as you leave this message and step back into your daily life, carry this practice with you. The next time you are in an argument, do not rush to speak. Pause, breathe, feel your heartbeat, and ask yourself gently, is this worth losing my peace? If it is not, choose silence. Not forever, not to avoid truth, but to protect wisdom. Because silence is not emptiness, it is awareness waiting to guide you. It is strength waiting to express itself calmly. It is maturity waiting to rise above impulse. And when you truly understand this, something magical happens. You no longer fear arguments. You no longer dread disagreements. You become centered, grounded, free. Happiness is not about having the loudest voice in the room. It is about having the calmest heart. When you put awareness first, fear naturally takes the last place. When you put humility first, ego naturally steps aside. True success is not winning debates. True success is mastering yourself. And when you master yourself, you don't just win every argument. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to argue at all. And that is the highest victory of all. And as we close this journey together, I want you to remember something very simple yet very profound. Life is not a courtroom. You are not here to prove your case every single day. You are here to grow. to love, to serve, to evolve. Arguments are part of life, differences are natural, disagreements are inevitable, but suffering from them, that is optional. And the option lies in one small space, the space between stimulus and response. In that space lives your freedom. When someone speaks harshly, you cannot control their words. When someone misunderstands you, you cannot control their perception. When someone criticizes you, you cannot control their opinion. But you can always control your response. And that is where your power lives. Not in domination, not in louder arguments, not in sharper logic, but in calm awareness. Imagine becoming someone who cannot be easily disturbed, someone whose peace is not fragile, someone whose dignity is not shaken by disagreement. That is not weakness, that is mastery. And mastery is built quietly. It is built in the moments when you choose not to interrupt. It is built when you resist the urge to defend instantly. It is built when you allow your heart to soften instead of harden. Over time, this practice changes you. You become slower to anger, quicker to understand, wiser in speech, gentler in tone, and the world around you begins to feel different because you are different. Remember this always. You do not need to attend every argument you are invited to. Some battles are not worth your energy. Some comments are not worth your reaction. Some misunderstandings are not worth your peace. Choose carefully where you invest your emotional strength because your energy is precious. Your peace is precious. Your relationships are precious. And protecting them is far more important than protecting your ego. So from today, make a quiet promise to yourself. When conflict arises, you will pause. When emotions rise, you will breathe. When ego whispers, you will listen to wisdom instead. Not perfectly, not always, but intentionally. And with practice, this intention becomes character. Happiness is not about having the last word, it is about having the last calm breath. When you put awareness first, ego naturally takes the last place. When you put peace first, arguments lose their power over you. True success is living consciously, joyfully, and purposefully. So walk forward with quiet strength. Carry yourself with gentle confidence. Let your silence speak of your maturity. Because the person who masters silence does not just win arguments, they win respect, they win clarity, they win inner freedom. And when you have inner freedom, no argument can ever defeat you again. And now, before you go, let me leave you with something you can carry into every conversation from this moment forward. There is a beautiful difference between being powerful and appearing powerful. Appearing powerful is loud, it demands attention, it insists on being right. Being powerful is calm, it does not rush, it does not panic, it does not need applause. When you argue loudly, you may appear strong, but when you remain centered in silence, you become strong. And that strength is unshakable. My dear friends, the world will test you. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will underestimate you. Someone will disagree with you. Someone will try to provoke you. And in those moments, you will feel the familiar pull, the urge to respond immediately, to defend, to correct, to dominate. But remember this, not every fire needs your fuel. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to add wood to the flames. Silence is not retreat, it is control. It is choosing long term peace over short term pride. It is protecting your mental clarity instead of feeding emotional chaos. And over time, this practice will transform you in ways you cannot imagine. You will notice that arguments no longer exhaust you. You will notice that criticism no longer wounds you deeply. You will notice that disagreements no longer threaten your identity because your identity is no longer built on being right. It is built on being grounded. And grounded people cannot be shaken easily. Let me give you one final thought to reflect on. If someone hands you anger, you have two options. You can accept it and carry it, or you can let it fall to the ground. Silence is often the act of letting it fall. You don't absorb it, you don't multiply it, you don't return it, you let it end with you. And that is how cycles of conflict are broken, not by overpowering others, but by outgrowing the need to overpower. So from today onward, practice this quiet discipline. When emotions rise, breathe. When ego speaks, pause. When conflict appears, observe. Then respond only if your words are wiser than your silence. Because silence is not the absence of strength, it is strength under control. Happiness is not about winning every conversation, it is about preserving your inner calm. When you put awareness first, fear naturally steps aside. When you put humility first, ego loses its grip. True success is living consciously, peacefully, and purposefully. And when you live that way, you don't just win arguments, you rise above them. And that is the highest victory of all. And now, let this be the final whisper to your heart. One day, you will realize that peace was always more valuable than pride, that protecting your energy was more important than protecting your ego, that choosing silence was not losing, it was evolving. You see, arguments are temporary storms. They come loudly, they disturb the surface, they create noise. But you are not the storm, you are the sky. Storms pass, the sky remains. When someone throws harsh words at you, they are showing you their weather, not yours. You do not have to absorb their clouds. You do not have to mirror their thunder. You do not have to rain when they rain. You can remain clear. That is the power of silence. It reminds you that you are bigger than the moment. It reminds you that you do not need to shrink into reaction. It reminds you that your peace is sacred and sacred things must be protected. So the next time someone challenges you, instead of tightening your jaw, soften your breath. Instead of preparing your defense, prepare your awareness. Instead of rushing to win, pause to understand. Because life is not keeping score of arguments. Life is measuring the depth of your character, and character is revealed in moments of tension. Anyone can be calm when everything is pleasant. Anyone can be kind when everything is comfortable. But remaining centered when you are provoked, that is growth, that is maturity, that is inner mastery. And when you master yourself, you step into a different level of living. You stop chasing validation. You stop fearing disagreement. You stop needing to prove your worth. You begin living from confidence instead of comparison, from awareness instead of impulse, from peace instead of pride. And that shift changes everything. Your relationships improve, your stress reduces, your clarity increases. Your happiness deepens, not because the world changed, but because you did. So walk this path of silence with intention, not as avoidance, not as weakness, but as conscious strength. Remember, happiness is not about having the loudest voice. It is about having the calmest mind. When you put awareness first, ego naturally moves aside. When you put peace first, conflict loses its control over you. True success is living consciously, joyfully, and purposefully. And when you master the power of silence, you don't just win every argument. You become someone who no longer needs to argue to feel powerful. You become steady. You become wise. You become free. And that freedom, it is the greatest victory you will ever experience. And now, let me leave you with something deeply personal. There will come a day when someone will try to pull you into an argument. They will speak loudly. They will try to provoke you. They will expect a reaction. And in that very moment, time will slow down. That moment is your crossroads. One path leads to noise, the other leads to growth. If you react, you may win the exchange.